In the early light of Egypt's history, when the sun of civilization was just beginning to rise above the deserts and the Nile flowed through a land not yet fully unified, there came a time of immense upheaval. A time when chaos threatened to consume the order that had begun to take root. A time when gods themselves seemed to battle for supremacy through the will of kings. And out of this maelstrom, a singular figure rose, a man who did not simply wear the crown, but who held together the very-eyed entirety of a nation struggling to define itself. This man was Khasekhemwy, a name that means the two powers have appeared, a name that speaks not only of political unity, but of divine reconciliation. A name that echoes with the ancient tension between Horus and Seth, order and chaos, Upper and Lower Egypt ... To understand Khasekhemwy, we must journey back to the obscure corridors of Egypt's Second Dynasty, a chapter in history veiled in mystery, its records fragmented, its rulers often known only through sparse inscriptions and elusive artifacts. And yet, this period so poorly understood was foundational. It was the crucible in which the Egyptian state, as we know it, was truly forged. Kings had ruled before him, yes. Men like Nama and Den, Peribsen and Ninja had sat upon the throne, but Khasekhemwy was different. He did not merely rule Egypt, he reunited it, he healed its schism. And in doing so, he set the stage for the glories of the Old Kingdom and beyond ... At the time of Khasekhemwy's rise, Egypt was in turmoil. The dream of a unified kingdom, established at the dawn of the First Dynasty, had frayed. Evidence suggests that the nation may have splintered once more into two competing realms, Upper and Lower Egypt, each possibly governed by separate rulers. The reasons for this division are not entirely clear. Perhaps it was a dynastic dispute, a conflict between rival houses. Perhaps it was rooted in religion, or economics, or regional power. What we know is that tensio simmered and then erupted into civil war. Archaeological finds and later inscriptions reference widespread rebellion. Names of kings vanish suddenly from the historical record. And into this void stepped Khasekhemwy, who may have initially ruled only the south. Khasekhemwy, later known as Khasekhemwy, inherited a fractured realm. He may have been a successor of Peribsen, the enigmatic pharaoh who had broken with tradition and adopted the deity Seth as his royal patron, replacing the long-revered falcon god Horus. This radical religious choice has sparked endless debate. Was Peribsen a reformer, a usurper, a regional ruler attempting to legitimize his reign through the god of chaos and the desert? Whatever his motives, his actions sent ripples through the religious and political landscape. Egypt's sacred balance mat had been disturbed. It would fall to Khasekhemwy to restore it. And restore it he did, but not without bloodshed. The path to unity was paved with war, inscriptions on stone, vessels discovered at Hierakonpolis tell of a great northern rebellion and its crushing defeat. One particularly stark entry records the death of over 47,000 enemies, a staggering figure, especially for the time. It stands as one of the earliest known records of battlefield casualties in human history. Whether exaggerated or precise, the message is clear: Khasekhemwy was not merely a king. He was a conqueror, a military leader who led his armies to victory and reasserted control over the divided land. It is after these campaigns that Khasekhemwy changed his name. No longer merely Khasekhemwy, the power has appeared, he became Khasekhemwy, the two powers have appeared. This was more than a nominal change. It was a profound political and religious statement. The two powers referenced in his name are widely interpreted to be the gods Horus and Seth, symbols of order and chaos, harmony and strife. By incorporating both deities into his royal titulary, Khasekhemwy was declaring an end to division. He was not merely favoring one god over another, as Peribsen had done. He was reconciling them, bringing them into balance. It was a theological innovation and a masterstroke of political symbolism. Khasekhemwy's dual devotion was visually reinforced in the iconography of his reign. Stone statues of the king depict him seated, flanked by the emblems of both Horus and Seth. Never before had an Egyptian king been portrayed in this way. Later pharaohs would continue the tradition of associating themselves with divine order, but none would so boldly place themselves between to once opposing gods. It is as if Khasekhemwy was saying, "I am the center, I am the axis. Through me, the world is whole again." With the land reunited, Khasekhemwy turned his attention to construction, administration, and legacy. His building projects were monumental for the time. At Abydos, he expanded the royal necropolis, establishing a massive tomb that rivals or surpasses the earlier tombs of his predecessors, measuring over 70 meters in length, with multiple chambers, niches, and galleries. It stands as a testament to his ambition and the resources he could command. But even more impressive is the structure he commissioned at Hierakonpolis, the Shunet el-Zebib, this vast mud-brick enclosure, over 120 meters long and 60 meters wide, is one of the earliest examples of large-scale architecture in stone and brick. Scholars consider it a direct precursor to the step pyramid of Djoser, B-1 by his likely son. In fact, the Shunet el-Zebib's purpose appears to have been ceremonial, possibly serving as a prototype for later royal mortuary complexes. Its high walls, niches, and inner chambers foreshadow the form and function of later pyramids and temples. Khasekhemwy was not just building for himself, he was laying the foundations of an architectural tradition that would define Egypt for millennia. Administratively, Khasekhemwy appears to have stabilized the state. Seal impressions from his reign show a complex bureaucracy, with officials overseeing temple donations, provincial duties, and storage of goods. It is during this time that the foundations of the Old Kingdom's centralized government were likely laid. He re-established order in the provinces, solidified control over trade routes, and ensured that religious institutions functioned under royal authority. If his predecessors had allowed local governors to grow to independent, Khasekhemwy reeled them back in. His Queen Nineveh also played a crucial role. She is referenced in later texts as mother of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, a title suggesting not only royal motherhood but possibly regency or co-regency. Her son, almost certainly, was Djoser, the first king of the Third Dynasty and builder of the famous step pyramid. Through Nineveh, Khasekhemwy ensured dynastic continuity. He was not only the last king of a turbulent age, he was the father of a golden one. Khasekhemwy's reign may have lasted nearly 3 decades, though the exact duration remains debated. During that time, he transformed Egypt from a fractured land of competing factions into a centralized, ideologically unified kingdom. His policies, symbols, and structures all point to a leader deeply aware of the fragility of order and the power required to maintain it. And then silence. After Khasekhemwy, the records of the Second Dynasty end. The curtain falls on an era. When it rises again, we find ourselves in a new world. The Third Dynasty, with Djoser on the throne, Imhotep at his side, and the pyramids beginning to rise. But let us not forget who made it all possible. Let us not forget the man who stitched a divided nation back together, who dared to place Horus and Seth in harmony, who constructed monuments not merely of stone, but of symbolism. Khasekhemwy was a unifier, a visionary, and in many ways, the first true pharaoh of a united and stable Egypt. In today's world, we often remember the kings of gold, the ones whose tombs dazzled with treasure, whose names are etched on temples that scrape the sky. But sometimes the most important kings are those whose gifts were not glinting artifacts, but structure, peace, and vision. Khasekhemwy left behind no golden mask, no valley temple visited by thousands. What he left behind was Egypt itself, a nation held together not by fear or chance, but by deliberate, intelligent rule. His name is less known today, but his legacy lives in every stone pyramid, every surviving temple, every scroll of papyrus that speaks of order and balance. Without him, Egypt might have remained a land of warring provinces. With him, it became the beacon of civilization that the world still reveres. So next time you think of ancient Egypt, think not only of the glittering treasures or the towering monuments. Think of the storm that came before. Think of the one who calmed it. Think of the king who held the line between chaos and order and brought peace to a land torn and into. Think of Khasekhemwy. And if you found this story as powerful as we did, don't forget to like this video, share it with your fellow history lovers, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating journeys into the forgotten corners of ancient Egypt. Leave us a comment below what surprised you most about King Khasekhemwy. Had you heard of him before, and who should we uncover next from the sands of time? Your engagement helps us bring the past back to life, one story at a time.